Welcome to the Salem Chamber podcast. I'm Tom Hoffert, CEO of the Salem Chamber, and we're pleased to have you listening. Let's jump right in. Welcome to the Salem Chamber podcast. Today, we have a special guest, Jon Moore, owner and physical therapist with the PT Project. Jon, welcome to the Salem Chamber podcast.
Yeah, thanks for the invite to come on. I appreciate it.
We look forward to sharing conversation with you, Jon. You've been incredibly involved in the Salem Chamber, but honestly, incredibly involved in the Salem community. And we'll kind of go into some of your passion bucket things that draw you into community activities. But if you would, Jon, start with our audience and talk maybe a little bit about your history, your childhood, where you grew up, and how we arrived to the gentleman who's in front of me today.
Yeah, sure. So I was born down in Klamath Falls. My dad worked for the fire department. My mom worked for the state police. So I grew up kind of in a house where public service was not only important, but like lived out daily in front of me. So fast forward, 1992, my dad took a job here with the Salem Fire Department as a fire marshal. And so our family moved here to Salem in 92. It was a big culture shock from me, coming from a little, elementary school of maybe 350, 400 kids, most K through 6, to Judson Middle School with 2,000 kids, 7th and 8th grade. The rain, all of it was just a lot to kind of take in those first couple of years, but got plugged into sports and just, kind of immersed myself in that world. And, I ended up graduated from Sprague in 98. Then from there went to what's now Corbin University, graduated from there in 2002 with my bachelor's degree in health sciences. Spent a few years down in Fresno, California, going to physical therapy school, came right back home after graduation, went to work out in Staten for about 10 and a half years. I was out there, went from being a new grad PT to eventually running the clinic that I worked at. Unfortunately, they kind of went through some ownership changes. That led me to Kaiser Permanente for a couple of years, just due to some circumstances outside of my control. But it worked out really well because it ended up kind of coinciding with the pandemic, so we had been kind of previously leading up to opening our own clinic prior to that, and we were about to sign lease papers, but a week before we did that, the pandemic hit. So we felt super protected and, big believer that nothing happens by mistake. Everything's, ordained and happens for a reason. And so we just took that opportunity to kind of, re-look at what our business model was going to be like. Some things happened with business partners dropping off, and my wife and I kind of forging ahead to open it up. And so we opened December 1st, 2021. So we're coming right up on our 2-year anniversary coming up. So,
well, it's been fun to watch that ascent, and as a chamber, we get to see our members very deeply, and watching their successes is a huge part of course, the satisfaction of being in nonprofit work for us. You brought up a theme that we're going to talk about probably a few times today, and that is the role of sports. And certainly in your profession, well, I'll dig in a little bit to that and note some of the things that you're involved with. But when you look at high school, what sports were you participating in? What drew you to those sports?
Yeah, so I absolutely loved baseball. Baseball was my passion, and all the rest of the sports I did for a hobby, but baseball was my passion. And then, so I tried out for my freshman baseball team at Sprague. At that time, I think we had 113 kids try out for freshman baseball team.
Wow.
I got to the final cut, and I was the last person cut. So that kind of rocked my world a little bit, but I still played, Babe Ruth in some of those leagues. So, but still, I was all about sports, and I got really involved in competitive racquetball. And so racquetball was huge, kind of, especially here in the Northwest where it's rainy climates. It's something you can do inside. Great exercise. My dad played like competitively for years and years. So I just kind of grew up around the racquetball court, and I started getting really involved with that. And so um, I, I started playing at national tournaments all over the state. I was playing three tournaments a weekend. Uh, my dad and I started the Sprague High School racquetball team,
which has gone on to national success.
So we started that my sophomore year. Yeah, my sophomore year. By my senior year, we went to nationals for the first time and brought home the very first national championship for Sprague. And then they continued that on and have been just absolute like rock stars in the racquetball community, thanks to a lot of the people that I started the program with back in the day. So the Edmistons have been awesome at carrying that torch forward. So
that's incredible. And I think Courthouse Athletic Club was hugely involved in that, if I'm correct.
Absolutely, yep. So they had not only the junior program that they hosted out there at the Lancaster courthouse location, but then when we started to form the Sprague team, they were fantastic about letting us have the South Club kind of give us all the courts for a couple nights a week, and they've continued that relationship with Sprague, and it's just been fantastic. I mean, really, like, sports, not only are they good for your physical, well-being, but they teach so many life lessons to kids, how to win, how to lose, how to be a teammate, how to take instruction from adults. I mean, I can just go on and on and on about the value and the things that I learned through sports. But yeah, it's vitally important to the health of a community. I really feel like it.
I would second that. Team sports were a big part of my life, and I want to, before I transition to how deep into sports you are, could you take our listeners on the process? Were you somebody who grew up knowing the career you wanted, Jon, or was this something that once you got into undergrad at Corbin that this was a discovery? Or talk to me about that mindset and how you arrived at this profession.
Yeah. So again, I was all in on sports from basically the time I could walk. So that was my passion. So my dad was super involved with racquetball again. So he started playing with a guy who was a physical therapist. And so he would just like tell me all about like the cool things he was doing with working with, professional sports teams. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. I'm going to be a professional player though. So like, I don't need to necessarily like worry about being the one to help them. And then, fast forward. So I kind of had this idea of like, I wanted to be involved in sports from a pretty early age. Fast forward to, that freshman year baseball team, I get cut and I'm like, suddenly like my world is rocked. I'm like, maybe professional sports isn't going to be in my cards, so maybe I do need to start looking at other ways that I can be in sports and still, participate, but look for other avenues to get there. And so, and you start taking the aptitude tests in school, like, what are you good for? What are you good at? What are your strong suits? What careers are ideally suited for your personality? Physical therapy always picked up top of the list for me. It was like that or garbage man. It was like one or the other. Physical therapist sounded pretty cool. Sports, so at Sprague, my senior year, they did a health occupations class. So I got to go out and start like checking out careers. So I job shadowed orthopedic surgeons here in town, physical therapists, family medicine doctors, athletic trainers with Western Oregon. So I got exposed to a lot of different careers at that point, and I was like, man, physical therapy sounds really cool, that and athletic training. So that was kind of my focus as I headed off to undergrad. The cool thing about going to a small school is there's lots of opportunities to get involved with stuff. And so I started volunteering in the athletic training room and kind of seeing that. And it was great. You're working with athletes, but it's really hard work. It's lots of hours. A lot of athletic trainers put in tons of hours that they're never compensated for. And I knew that family was going to be an important thing for me. So it really started to look like, if I want to do this right, make a good living, support a family, physical therapy is probably going to be a little bit better route to take than the athletic training route. And so I started volunteering for a PT clinic out here in South Salem as an undergrad. I worked doing that. I'd come in as often as they would let me, and I just got, exposed to the point where like they couldn't get rid of me. So they just ended up hiring me after I graduated. And so I worked there for 2 years while my wife finished school. We were married at the time, I got married just after I had graduated. And so, that was kind of how I got to PT, and then kind of the rest is history.
I think the role of physical therapists, if you're involved in sporting events, and I'm very fortunate to serve on a number of collegiate events as a lacrosse official, and there's always a physical therapist present. Yeah. And whether we're at U of O or we're down in Corvallis at Oregon State, how attuned and attentive to the athlete's needs physical therapists are is pretty profound. And to know the athlete's mindset when they're coming off the field, or let's localize it to you, coming off the court, and they want to be back in the game. Yeah. Or there's a fear, and you see it magnified obviously at the pro sports level, but talk to me about that mindset of an athlete in discomfort, and what are some of the tactical ways that you address somebody in that sort of distress and in that moment?
Sure. Addressing it on the court or, on the field at the moment is a lot different than, 24 hours later when they see me in the clinic. At the very beginning, you're trying to figure out, like, first off, like, is this something that I can help with, or is this so serious that I need to get them to like a higher level of care right away? So once you've kind of figured that out and you've chatted with the athlete, kind of figure out what happened, then the next step is, okay, like, is this something that you can bounce back from, and what's the odds? I want to try to get the athlete back into the game as quickly as possible, so that things don't start to stiffen up or tighten up. So that's my goal. It doesn't always happen that way. I'm going to put them through tests and say, like, okay, like, yeah, you can do this, you can't do this. Like, you're probably not going to be jumping out there if you can't, like, put weight on it, or so. So I'm going to try to assess and do what I can. And that's where, having 15 years, of experience where I can, like, make those clinical judgments pretty quick, comes into play. But there's a lot that goes into just that mindset. The athlete really wants to know, like, how bad is it? Can I play again tonight? Because that's really what they want to do. And if I can't play tonight and I need to sit it out, how long do I have to sit out for before I can get back to doing stuff? So those are the big three questions that I'm trying to answer for them, whether it's talking with them or putting them through some different tests and going from there.
Well, I've watched you do it firsthand, and I'll get into that in a moment. But physical therapists also take care of the third team on the field. And I can't tell you how many of our officials, because we're not the age of the student athletes in the collegiate situation or in the semi-pro and pro level. We're not the athletes that these individuals are in men's and women's sports. They are finely tuned machines. There are so many times that the training staff have helped us officials get through a hammy pull or wrap a calf muscle or whatnot. So we applaud you for that. I want to, before we transition into some of the really fun things that you do, I want you to kind of set up your business and the PT Project. I'd like you to describe kind of how you arrived on that name and what that brand means to our community.
Sure. So when we started looking at physical therapy clinics, we wanted something that had, like, and naming it, we wanted something that had an edge to it, sounded like totally unique, totally different than any other physical therapy provider that's out there. So being in a traditional PT clinic for 13 years prior to opening up our own clinic, I had experienced a lot of what traditional PT looked like and felt like. And, from being an aide to a therapist to a director, like I had seen it all. So when we started thinking about names, like what could we still include, and make people understand like, oh, this is physical therapy related. That's what this is about. But also start to go like, wait, what's this whole project thing about? Like, what is that? And just ask questions about it. And so it was just a way for us to like give ourselves like a little bit of a differentiator, and have people want to ask questions about it. Because that's what then opens up the opportunities to build relationships with people, tell them about how we're different, what makes us different. So, I mean, our philosophy is if you have a body, you're an athlete. So your sport may look different based on your age or what your goals are or what your like true like deep why for what you do is. But deep down, the human body is an amazing machine. And if you don't take care of it through the entire lifespan, you're going to run into issues physically, mentally, So it's just for us a way to connect with people. We do things a lot different. We spend hour-long visits, every single visit with your therapist and your client. So it's a really kind of unique opportunity to like build relationships with people, understand who they are, and become more than just a PT. We become more like human body consultants. So we start talking to people about their sleep, their nutrition, their mental health, and how does all of that factor into then their physical well-being as well. So we just don't isolate it to like, oh, you've got knee pain, like let's fix that. We take it a whole step further. So
that individualized treatment is one of certainly the attractions. I think most listeners have had a moment in their life where maybe it was a car accident, maybe a sports injury, something in their life where they possibly needed to get some physical therapy. And you traditionally think about going into an office, you receive a little bit of coaching, and then you go do your work as they revolve through other clients. If you've never walked into the physical therapy project, the physical space, talk to the audience about what is that experience like? What is a visit to go see Jon or his talented staff team? What does that look like?
Yeah, for when you walk through the door, the very first thing that you're going to notice is this clinic looks a whole lot different than your traditional PT clinic. You're going to see squat racks. You're going to see more of like a gym atmosphere, music playing. So people moving around and being involved with stuff. You're going to be greeted by like people who actually care about you as an individual, not just about what your insurance benefits are. So that's the big thing right from the get-go is we designed the space to look more like a gym because we want people, our clients are typically very active. They feel comfortable in a gym setting, much more comfortable than going to the doctor. For most of our patients, they hate going to the doctor. They feel uncomfortable in a traditional clinical setting. And so when they walk through, it's already like, oh, this is so much different. I feel comfortable here. The gym is where healthy people go. The doctor is where sick people go. So that's kind of where we took everything kind of with that mindset. And then, then we combine that with the individual care. We truly, really provide a completely different PT experience than people are used to.
You had mentioned in your conversation with one of our staff professionals, Dan Johnson, over a year ago, that one of your goals was the growth of your team. And we've been very honored to watch that occur. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you go from what can probably feel like a really big maybe even insurmountable goal to achieving that goal. And now what is the reaped rewards of achieving that goal?
Yeah, well, our process has definitely been up and down, as we've brought people on. I think the hard thing is getting the right people on the bus. The diligence and the due process that it takes to find the right fits for your company are probably the most important part to the whole process. For physical therapists, they can have all the skills in the world, but if they don't embody kind of the core values that we feel are important, they're not going to be a good fit for what we're trying to do. They have to value themselves above, and the team. They have to have kind of a feeling of like self-worth that people are what I have is worthwhile and worthy of people coming to see me for an hour and spending, good hard-earned money to see me. If they don't have that idea of like, man, this is my superpower. This is something that people have issues, they have problems. I have a solution, and I want to give that solution to everybody that I possibly can. That's really who we're looking for, when we start to add staff. And it's been hard, filling schedules and as we continue to build, it's still a lot of word of mouth referrals that make it work for us, which is, the best compliment anybody can give to us is sending their friends or family members or telling them like, you guys have to go here. Like, it doesn't matter how much it costs, like they're going to take care of you the right way. So that's huge. And we've gone through some ups and downs, but we really feel like, Sina Gardner is my colleague. She's amazing when it comes to barbell athletes and understanding. She's probably, hands down the best PT when it comes to people who want to be in the gym and lifting heavy stuff. You're not going to find anybody better than her. And it's been a process for her. She's understanding, where her value is and just helping kind of guide that process for her. It's been kind of fun to just watch her grow as a therapist and just as an individual, and kind of taking some, self-confidence, doubts and stuff. And I think same thing for me. We all have insecurities, but then starting to realize like, oh, people actually do value what we're about. And it's been super fun.
I appreciate a little bit of lead into some vulnerabilities and hopefully you're comfortable sharing some of your insight. Because as leaders, you mentioned, we all have our insecurities and things that we need the community to know we have for them and feel confident about. Maybe take me into a little bit of those vulnerabilities, and could you share a little bit with our audience some of the things that you were very fearful of or nervous about heading into your own practice and the things that you were scared about then? And then maybe we can talk a little bit about the realities of now that you've lived through 2 years of it.
Yeah. So our practice model is that we don't directly work with insurance companies. So when we have somebody come to us, they're paying us out of their pocket and then hoping to then turn that bill into the insurance company for reimbursement, which most insurance companies will pay them back. But the initial insecurity is like, gosh, will somebody actually pay $250 or $200 or whatever to come see us for physical therapy when they can go to another place and have a $15, $20, $30 copay, and the insurance company is going to kind of, take care of it the rest of the way from there. So that was a big, insecurity for us. But the value, it comes down to like, what's the motivation for these people? And what we found is the people who like struggle with, money mindset problems and don't put a huge value on their physical well-being, it's not worth it to them. And that's okay with us. we are perfectly fine, like making recommendations to other great physical therapy providers that meet those needs for those folks. And that's fantastic. I mean, um, for us, we don't have this we try to focus on like an abundance mindset where there's so many people in our world that are hurting and need physical help. I can't take care of them all. Cena can't take care of them all. How do we give love to some other great providers around Salem and send them the right people that they're looking for too? Because at the end of the day, it's really about this person getting better and feeling like they've been taken care of versus hoarding them all to ourselves. So that was a big issue for us initially. Obviously, you know, as a new therapist, you're always like, do I know how to take care of this person? Like, they're putting a lot of money and a lot of faith in me to help them get better. Can I do it? And some of that just comes with repetitions. And I felt strongly like, man, I know how to take care of people after doing it for 13 years. I've seen a lot of stuff and can help a lot of people with different stuff. So that was the biggest thing for us, was just, will people actually come? And kind of going back to the sports thing, if you build it, they'll come. You just have to find the right people. So
very thoughtful mindset to also pass on recommendations to skilled peers in your industry and see the bigger picture there. I always say, whether you choose us or you choose a competitor, as long as they're local, the ecosystem is healthy. And I fight vigorously for dollars to remain in the Salem community, and largely with Salem Chamber members. But if the dollars stay local, we're all healthier in building community. Talk to me a little bit about the impact of having children in your life and how that affected your mindset as a business person.
Yeah. Wow. Well, my kids are like between my wife and my kids, they're everything to me. I would do anything and everything for them. And that's why I tirelessly grind and say yes to things and am involved. And, sometimes it's a juggling act where you want to say yes to things, but how does it impact your family? And fortunately, they've been super, super supportive. This was something that it's not just my clinic, it's the whole family's, business. So, my wife is there on a day-to-day basis. My kids are folding towels, they're involved too. So it's literally, it's a family run business. And I couldn't do it without their support. Now, in the first year, we had to make some decisions as a family that took me away from being able to be as involved as I would have liked, so that we could help kind of grow this. And it was a family decision that we all had to come to grips with, and it wasn't always super fun. It's not always super fun. There are definitely times where my kids feel like, Dad, you need to step back from a little bit. And fortunately, my wife is there to be like, John, take a step back. It'll be there tomorrow. Let's, because I'm very type A, I'm Enneagram 4, very results driven. And so that's my passion, is always be better today than you were tomorrow. And so, that's something that fortunately I have balanced through my wife and kids to be like, hey, just step it back a little bit and, take time for yourself also. So
it's great to have grounding at home and in the workplace. I think you and I both do a great job of surrounding ourselves with wonderful people in our professions. Talk to me a little bit about the mindset of a competitive person. And you, as much as you are in the physical rehabilitation world, you are also building champions in their mindsets. Having gone through a lot of physical therapy myself, it can be a very deflating time because the finish 100%. Line sometimes looks really, really far away.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the psychology side of your job, Jon.
Oh, for sure. Well, definitely. I mean, when somebody comes into me after an injury, and especially like if it's a really catastrophic injury, it's the lowest, can be the lowest points in their life, where they've had things where, something that's so important to them, whether it's a sport or, the loss of a limb or any of those types of things, that's like really like earth shattering for a lot of folks. And so I'm seeing them on their first day at maybe their lowest point, and you're trying to get them back to where they were before, or come to grips with like kind of what is the new normal going to look like for me. So we have to be their biggest cheerleader a lot of times. Like I know it's hard. I know it sucks. Like that's where the one-on-one care comes in, where it's not just you got to do it. I got somebody else to go see like 10 minutes from now. So like you can either do it or not. You can cry about it. I don't care. Like I got to go, type of thing. Whereas now being invested with them, I'm like, man, like there's been more times where I have people cry in front of me now. And I'm like, I'm crying with you because you just did something that you couldn't do a year ago. Like, so I get to be a cheerleader for folks now, but I also get to see them go from point A to point B. We have a patient that hurt her knee 4 years ago, been through surgeries, PT, everything, lots of other places, came to me broken, feeling like I'm not failing as a mom because I can't do what I want to with my kids. We can't go for hikes. I can't be as involved. And then to see her now like hiking, no knee pain, like strong, healthy, like being re-engaged with her family. And she's like, you've given me my life back. You've given my family like their mom back. Like that's the stuff that fills the bucket for me. It's not about, how much money I make. It's all about the investment. How can I invest in other people and like make their world a better place? So
Wonderful. We teased a little bit about involvement in sports, and you have two teams in Salem, and likely more, but two that you are prominently involved with, and that's the Mavericks Baseball League as well as our outstanding Salem Capitals professional men's basketball team. Could you tell our listeners a little bit about your involvement with both and maybe how it came about?
Yeah. So, well, I have the chamber to thank for all of that. It wouldn't have happened without the chamber. So we started December 1st, 2021. My very first greeters meeting was right kind of after Christmas time, tail end of December. It just happened to be the very first meeting that Jason Conrad was at. He presented over at the Armory and what his vision for the Salem Capitals was going to be. So afterwards, we connected and I asked him, what are you doing for care for your guys? And he's like, we don't have anybody. And I said, well, good, we should connect. So, we met over for coffee and showed him the space. I had just finished working with Ethan Thompson from Oregon State, who was now playing in the G League. Jason and I were able to connect over that a little bit. And he's like, yeah, I don't have money for, paying for medical. I was like, great. Cause I don't have money to pay for a marketing budget. So how about we, figure something out that's mutually beneficial. And that's kind of how that started. Mavericks League, after seeing what I was doing with the Capitals, the Walker family reached out to me on, providing on-field coverage and stuff for them. That was a super fun summer. That was, it was a grind, 96 baseball games in a summer. So I worked, I think, 85 of those 96 games that first summer. Every weekend I was out there, plus running the clinic by myself at that point, full time. So it was a grind. That was, that decision that the family had to decide on is like, do we take this on? How does this help grow the business? Is it going to be worth it? And, it gave us some, visibility, having those two in our pocket of saying, hey, look, like we've been able to establish relationships with the Capitals, the Mavericks League. All of these professional athletes are trusting us with their care. You can too, and so it gave us some instant credibility kind of out there and started allowing the brand to kind of be seen. I'm not as involved anymore with the Mavericks League just because of the time commitment that they needed, and I just couldn't provide the coverage that they needed to, and so I was able to help kind of connect them with a couple of the athletic trainers that they used last summer for that, and so still I love. That was my opportunity to be that professional baseball in the professional dugout of a baseball, just like I had dreamed about when I was 8, so it was super cool, kind of full circle moment for me. But I'm also happy to like have some time back and pull back from things and be able to say like, I would love to, but I can't. My family, it was a stretch. I couldn't be at baseball games and stuff as much as I would have liked to. And we had to say no to some family vacations and opportunities that, we would have traditionally loved to enjoy. And so it's one of those things where I've learned over the last 2 years, like you can say yes to a lot of things, but sometimes it's okay to say no to things also. So, but now we're also doing stuff with Corbin University and their athletic department. And so it's been super fun to get back kind of re-engaged with some of, men's, women's basketball, volleyball, baseball, softball, soccer, so like we're doing some fun things with them. And there's some new things that are coming that might be on the horizon too.
I love that. And nice job coming full circle back with Corbin where you do your undergrad.
Yeah.
So a natural pull there, I would imagine, for you. One thing I don't want to hop past too quick is you said something that really caught me, and that's you met Jason but let's not lose. You had bold leadership and you said, I'm going to take a chance and go start a conversation and see where that can go. When I share what a chamber greeters or a forum luncheon is, there is content there to be absorbed, but a huge part of that, is the person-to-person networking.
100%.
How do you maximize your time, Jon, when I have a finite amount of time, there's a number of people in the room? How do you prioritize your own time to connect with people? And what are you targeting? What are you listening for? Who are the people that you're naturally drawn to create those deep connections with?
Well, I think, initially your first goal is, or the easiest people are like, what do I have in common with them? So like, are they a medical provider? Are they sports related? Are they a gym, person? Like, so like that was the initial, like, okay, I'm going to seek these people out because they probably have contacts that, can, if they're not needing PT, maybe they know somebody that does, as we were growing and just getting things off the ground. But since I've been there for now basically 2 years, I know a lot more people. And a lot of that has just been, hey, I don't know you. What do you do? Tell me about yourself. What do you do? Who's the right person for me to be able to send to you? I love to ask questions. That's kind of my philosophy when I go into a networking event is who's the right person for you? How can I help your business grow? And I try not to talk. I very rarely will ever start with, hey, I'm Jon. I'm the PT, project owner. I do physical therapy. Let me tell you all about what I do. That's just not my style. I want to know like, who are you? How can I help you? And then from there, hopefully that's reciprocated. They also take the time to like want to know me. For the people who don't ask questions about us, then that's kind of my like at least yellow flag of like maybe this person is more in it for themselves and only here for selfish reasons versus how do we make each other better, and how can I help your business just as much as how do you help mine? So
talk to me about some tactical questions, Jon. Keeping your staff team engaged and happy. What are some of the things that you've discovered as an employer really keep your teams feeling a part of the mix and really proud to work under your banner?
Yeah. Well, I think most importantly, we want our employees, we want our staff, our team to feel valued. Like, how they're not just there to work. They're an individual. They've got stuff going on outside of work. And so we really, like, our thing is like, how are you doing as an individual? We want to like compensate and take care of somebody. I don't want to just be empty with my words and saying like, hey, I value you, but we also want to show that monetarily, because a lot of people, the world is expensive and you got to pay the bill somehow. And so when people aren't feeling valued as an individual, they don't feel like they're well compensated, they're going to look for other opportunities, and so we start off with, you're part of the family. Like, I care about you as an individual. I wouldn't have brought you on the team if I didn't see greatness and potential in what you can do to help us out, but you're never going to lead to that full potential if you don't feel that you're valued, that a lot of this other stuff is taken care of for you. So we always start out with that. That's probably the biggest thing is, how are you doing? How's life? What's going on? And just being intentional about that part of things. I can teach people, I can teach skills. I can help you grow as a PT. We can take Con Ed classes. We can do a lot of things, but the first person is the individual. The right individual has to be on the bus. We can figure out what seat works best for them from there, but they have to be committed to that first. So that's really what it comes down to. Lead by example. Be open about what's going on in your life, what you're struggling with. I can talk about, fortunately we have a small staff right now, and we're growing, but it's just a work in process.
Another part of tactical leadership is our own self-care. Mm-hmm. How does Jon, and maybe it's with the family and kids, but how does Jon hit a reset and make sure his mental health is on point? Because honestly, we can't serve the communities we serve until we're taken care of as our own beings, as leaders. How do you tactfully make sure you're reloading and reset and ready to be your best self?
Yeah. For one, it starts with making yourself a priority, and setting. I have to block my schedule. I have to set aside time to be, diligent with my faith. I have to set time to get to the gym and work out, or go for a run. I have to set time because my initial instinct as, a very motivated person is I'll push that to the side. There's other stuff that will grow the business or that kind of thing. So I have a lot of that, but so blocking the schedule. My wife and kids do a great job of also hey Dad, let's go do this. Let's go in the backyard, throw the ball around. Let's go out in the street, play, throw me some passes or whatever. Let's get, go to the park or do something. Let's go to the batting cage this weekend. So I love spending time with my family. That's, if I can be doing anything, that's the part that I love doing. And I will, sacrifice my time. I'll get up early in the morning to go work out so that then I'm present and being able to not have to take time away from when they're awake and ready to be engaged with the world. I want to be there for that.
This has been a great conversation with Jon Moore, owner and physical therapist at the Physical Therapy Project right in downtown Salem. Jon, a little humble brag. Tell us, how would guests, listeners get a hold of you best? What's your website, social channels?
Yeah, so we are on Instagram and Facebook, the Physical Therapy Project. all spelled out, all connected. You can get a hold of me by through our website. It's theptproject.net, or you can email me, Jon, Jon, at theptproject.net. And if you have any questions about how we can help or what we can do to assist in any way, love to have a chat.
Can always go on to salemchamber.org and type in the Physical Therapy Project and instantly have that pull up in our membership. Jon, I want to close with some building excitement. And as we wrap up, could you share one or two things you're incredibly excited about? Number one, in your business, and if you could also share what you're excited about being a part of the Salem business community.
Yeah. So we are super proud. We've been in business 2 years, and we've been voted #1 physical therapy provider in the Willamette Valley both years. So super excited about that. And I think that's just a reflection of the care that people value and see benefit. So that's been super rewarding. We'll try to keep that streak going. Super excited about just what's going on in the Salem community and being more engaged with the Salem business community. I think, when I look at my circle of influence, like how it's grown through the chamber over the last year has been really exciting. Have some really great friends that are super huge in my life now that weren't in my life 2 years ago. And that's a lot of it is because of the chamber. So I'm really eager to continue to do whatever I can to help the chamber continue its mission. I don't think Salem is as strong without the chamber, like we've talked about, where a strong business community makes for a strong community. And you have to have one. You can't have one without the other. And so I'm super excited to be engaged with CTEC and going out and telling students about what physical therapy is, having them come into the clinic and see firsthand what it's all about. So yeah, there's just lots of opportunities that I'm excited about doing.
This has been a great conversation, great perspectives with Jon Moore. I really appreciate your time today, Jon, and know that this organization has just really enjoyed seeing your company maturate a bit, but really just how giving you are to this community. And thank you for this gift of time today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I would love to do it anytime.
Get to know Jon Moore any Friday at Greeters. And if you don't have the opportunity there, make sure to reach out to him in the community. Jon Moore, the PT Project. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Salem Chamber Podcast. The Salem Chamber is a 501c6 not-for-profit organization representing nearly 1,100 businesses in the greater Salem area. For additional information, please visit salemchamber.org. This has been a production of Dan Johnson and Lena Prine on the Salem Chamber's professional staff team.